Hi. So today I wanted to talk about why it's important to be recycling and making sure that we think about the life of our plastics after we use them the one time. So with Earth Day having recently passed, I was thinking that I wanted to talk about something that we often take for granted. I know I do, at least at the moment. And I wanted to talk about how single-use plastic bottles have become so normalized and where they end up. So all of the entire history's worth of plastic still exists in some form unless it was incinerated. So that means even the first plastic that was ever made still exists. Plastic will actually end up in the ocean because it will not be recycled, so it will end up in landfill, and then the landfill will become overfilled, or plastic will be sitting on the top, and since it's very light, the wind will pick it up and either push it into rivers and streams, which will eventually go into the ocean, or it will go directly to the ocean depending on where the landfill is. And 9.1 billion tons of plastic have been produced since plastic was introduced in the 1950s. So that is a lot of plastic that still exists today. And the amount of plastic that is produced in 1 year is about the weight of humanity itself. So that's quite a lot. And that is from Jason Gouldard, writing for earthday.org. Education and familiarity regarding recycling needs to be introduced and kept up so that plastic doesn't keep ending up in ocean water. And that, as a result, is affecting human life because and in a negative way, and these problems can be fixed by holding people accountable for their actions and putting laws into place about plastic treatment. So today I'm going to be talking about how the water is being affected by plastic, ocean water, which is affecting human lives, and how we have to do something about it before it's too late. And plastic pollution doesn't just affect animals in the ocean, because it is getting into the food cycle. Humans have created a whole new normal for animals living in and around the ocean, which have created millions of new pieces of plastic. So there are more than enough plastic items to be mentioned right now, but I'm just going to be focusing on the two main ones that I think affect animals the most, which are plastic drinking bottles and toothbrushes. And not many people know the effect of toothbrushes on the earth. According to the Container Recycling Institute, 100.7 billion plastic beverage bottles were sold in the US in 2014, which would be about 315 bottles per person, and 60 million single-use containers ended up in landfill in 2019. And that is Pat Franklin, writing for the Container Recycling Institute. And 14% of all litter actually comes from plastic beverage containers. And then when caps for the containers and the labels are included, that makes the number even higher. And that information comes from Plastic Oceans International. So if you laid out human use of toothbrushes thrown away in the US every year, so this is just 1 year, they would wrap around the earth 4 times. So if you laid them all out, they would wrap around the earth 4 times. That's crazy to me. That information is from Hannah Whitaker, writing for National Geographic. And also, another huge issue that we are facing right now is the trash islands. There are 6 main ones around the earth at the moment. And the animals are really being affected by this because, for instance, the loggerhead sea turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish, which they eat. That's their favorite food. And albatrosses, which are seabirds, they mistake plastic resin pellets for fish eggs. And then they feed them to their babies, which either makes them perish or they, from starvation or either ruptured organs. And that information is from Laura Parker, writing for National Geographic. And it's found to have been said that over 90% of all seabirds, so that's birds living around the ocean everywhere, 90% have plastic pieces in their stomachs. And that is from Plastic Oceans International. There are 6, like I said, there are 6 trash islands on the earth right now. There's one off the coast of Japan called the West Pacific Gyre. There's one off of the west coast of the US called the East Pacific Gyre. There is one off the east coast of the US called the North Atlantic Gyre. One off of the left coast of South America called the South Pacific Gyre. And one off of the left coast of Africa called the South Atlantic Gyre. And the one last one in between the right coast of Africa and the left coast of Australia called the Indian Ocean Gyre. And that information is also from Laura Parker, writing for National Geographic. 91, so switching gears here, 91% of plastic waste is not recycled. So I feel like if people were more comfortable recycling, or if they had a little bit more knowledge about it, then that number would be much lower. Since most plastics do not biodegrade in any meaningful sense, all the plastic waste all that plastic waste could exist for hundreds or even thousands of years. And that is Jason Goulder, writing for earthtoday.org. So I'm going to switch gears here now and talk about the effects that plastic has on people. More importantly, specifically thinking about how it affects people when it is in the ocean. So animals are actually ending up eating the plastic that are in the ocean, and it affects fish, seabirds, sea turtles, and marine mammals, and these can all become entangled or eating the plastic, which causes suffocation, starvation, and drowning. And the plastic waste actually ends up killing up to 1 million seabirds a year, because it takes up room in their stomachs, which causes starvation. It's also impacting animals really negatively. In the Philippines, a huge whale actually had washed up on the sea with 88 pounds of plastic in its stomach, and there is evidence to show that it had been eating plastic for quite a long time, because portions of the plastic did have calcification, which meaning it was like a huge like hard brick of it, so it was sitting in there for quite a long time. So the way that it's affecting humans is the animals and sea life that are being eaten by humans are being like directly exposed to the plastic in the ocean. So the wildlife that are being eaten are directly being put into the food chain. So we are eating things that are eating plastic and so on. The long-term effects of plastic are not exactly known because there are not many people that are unaffected by it. So it's basically a globally spread issue, and people that haven't been affected by plastic, we don't really have any way of testing them because they don't want to be talked to by outside societies. Plastic also raises huge cancer risk issues along with reproductive health issues, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't feel like it's very related to the topic. So my solution would be taking the extra time to make sure that we are recycling, even if it does take a little bit more time than throwing whatever plastic you're using right into the trash, because that is one of the main ways that it is ending up in the ocean. There are also recycling bills being put into place that are AB 54 and AB 792, which reduces the amount of new plastic being made by 50% by the year 2030. That information comes from Lisa Class Boyle, writing for the Plastic Pollution Coalition. And using aluminum cans or aluminum containers instead of plastic, because aluminum will actually break down over time as to where plastic will not. It takes 200 to 500 years for aluminum cans to totally break down, but I feel like that is better considering plastic will never fully break down. And the reason why this isn't already being put in place is that plastic is 25 to 30% cheaper to produce than aluminum. But of course there isn't always this perfect answer to this issue because aluminum will put other toxins into the atmosphere while it's being produced. I feel like the health of humans really should be put first when it's being considered about treatment of plastic, because we should be moving forward rather than moving backwards, and it really feels like we aren't moving forwards right now. Now that I've talked about the risks to both animals and our oceans and people, I feel like it's very clear that something needs to be done. I really think that plastic treatment knowledge really needs to increase so that it's not being thrown directly in the trash. And the reduction of new and virgin plastics needs to be reduced as well. The risks that come from plastic are just too great to continue using, even if it does cost a little bit more to make something that's more environmentally friendly. Because it's so important to spend the extra time and money now than to have to spend that later when the problem cannot be fixed. Thank you.